morning to all of you, and thank you so much for registering and joining us here at the Breath of Life Community Conversation on Lung Cancer. This is our first workshop of 4 workshops to come, and we're excited about what this program will do and the impact that we intend to make in the African American and the communities of people of color. As you all know, that we have been behind the 8 ball when it comes to educating the community on the risk factors and some of the challenges of lung cancer and its related diseases, and quite frankly, cancer overall. But today we are going to have a community conversation. We have a number of policymakers, representatives from the legislative branch of our government here in the state of Georgia that's going to welcome us and certainly be behind this particular program. We also have clinicians that are experts in the area of cancer, specifically lung cancer and its related diseases. And so we're excited about this. This is our first one. And because it's our first one, there may be a couple of hiccups along the way, but know that the intent is to give you information and empower you and your community with information about lung cancer and its related diseases. And so my name is Pastor Eddie. I'm one of the pastors here, or the care pastor here at Impact Church right here in East Point, Georgia, the Tri-City community, which is our focus community. And we are excited about partnering with Hill Collaborative and Ambigen and Morehouse School of Medicine, Grady Healthcare Systems, to bring forth this amazing program. And so if you know of anyone who are challenged by lung cancer or cancer-related diseases, and they just don't know where to go to get information, I encourage you today, don't hesitate to give them this website, the links to registering and being a part of this amazing educational workshops and programs over the next 16 weeks. Now, we're going to be here every first Saturday, or the first Saturday of every month, for the next 4 months, July, August, and September, the first Saturday from 11 o'clock to 12:30 p.m. so that you can schedule yourselves and your loved ones can schedule yourselves to be a part of this. And before we get started today, if you don't mind, I'd like to lift this gathering up in prayer, because we believe that one word from God can turn around what was a state of despair, a state of pain, a state of hurt, illness, sicknesses, all of this. One word from Him and things can turn around. Will you bow with me for a brief moment of prayer? Father, we're so grateful to you for your gifts and your graces that you've allowed to come to this place in this moment, that we may be on one accord to do your will. We pray for every individual that's on this line today, those that have gone through lung cancer or cancer-related diseases and are yet still hurting. They're yet still in a grieving process, maybe because of a loved one or a friend or colleague that have succumbed to cancer or cancer-related diseases. Today, God, we bind and rebuke the hand of the enemy, and we decree and declare that there will be prosperity in this community, the Black community, the community of color, as related to education and to promote health, good health, strength, and prosperity throughout our community. Lord, this is our prayer. This is what we believe. This is what we decree, for we do it all in the matchless name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and our Savior. Amen, amen, and amen. To God be the glory. I am going to now welcome, because I know time is very tight and we want to get to the meat of the matter. We have a lot of great speakers and we have a lot of good information to give to you today. So I am now going to introduce a good friend, a colleague, and an impactor, Representative Roger Bruce, to start out our welcome from the legislative branch. Thank you so much. Welcome, Representative Bruce.
Thank you, and I hope I pushed the right buttons where people can hear me.
You did, yes, sir.
Okay, this is a new device for me and a new system. I haven't used this one before. But I feel very, very blessed to be able to support my church in this effort to help people who are suffering with this dreadful condition. And I really want to thank all of you that are listening, all of those that are participating, for your interest and concern for people who have this cancer and other cancers as well. This is a difficult time for all of us. Everyone is going through something, it seems. And the world just seems to be in total chaos. As you look around, every day you turn on the news, there's something crazy going on. So to see people like yourselves that are still concerned and caring about others is very, very refreshing. And it makes me feel good, that I woke up this morning and the first group of people that I'm involved with are people like you that are concerned about others. This is I truly pray that the scientists and all of the chemists that are out there and the people that are looking for cures and treatment for this dreadful condition, that they're successful in their efforts. It's ever since we were children, and Pastor, you appear to be about my age, so we've been dealing with this for a long time, and it's time to kind of bring it under control and try to make it where our children and their children don't have to deal with this going forward. So again, I just wanted to say good morning to everybody, to thank everybody for what they're doing to help bring this under control, and to offer whatever help I can. I see my colleague on here, Kim Schofield. She and I work well together on all kinds of issues, and I'm sure that we would be happy to introduce any legislation that we possibly could to help make this go forward, effort to go forward to try to come up with some cure, remedy, and treatment for this dreadful disease and others as well. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to bring greetings and to let people know that my heart is with you, my soul is with you, and I pray that God is with us as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Bruce. And I want you all to know he's not just a member of the church, but he is a representative from the Tri-City community. And so I'm excited to know that our legislators, like Representative Bruce, a great man, is behind this and a policymaker. It's important that you know that we're not just giving you information from the medical side, but also from the policymaker side. And if you have any questions or comments or even desires relative to policy, please put them in the chat and we will get them over to Representative Bruce and others. And now I'd like to welcome another policymaker, Representative Kim Schofield, who again is leading the charge to assist this program and programs like it on the legislative side. Good morning, Honorable Kim Schofield. Thank you for being on.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Pastor Eddie, and thank you to my colleague, Representative Roger Bruce, and to the HEAL Collaborative, Amgen, and Morehouse School of Medicine. It is a pleasure to be here with you and to be a part of these important conversations. I am Representative Kim Schofield. I serve on Health and Human Services for the state. I came to the political arena. I serve the Tri-Cities areas as well. I came to the political arena because of being a person that lived with lupus, and people did not know about lupus. And so lupus also impacts my lungs and affects my lungs. I
Mhm.
came into this space as an advocate to start raising awareness, educate policymakers, and then find resources for people that live with all forms of chronic disease. So I'm here today to tell you just quickly how important that is because of the work that we've done and with the Lupus Foundation and getting involved, connecting with the legislators, getting them up to speed. I ultimately was able to get elected and be invited to serve as in the House and want you to know, but it was the start of your voice as an advocate that drives the policy. So the
Amen.
policies that I represent as from rare diseases to finding cures and research starts from the voice of the people that are impacted most. That's
That's
you. And so every day is an opportunity to find out, what can I do beyond me? Yes, it affects you. It attacks your family, but there is something in an empowering moment that God can use that you shall not die but live to declare the goodness of the Lord, and that's
that's
through advocacy. So
Amen.
reach out to your legislators and help us help you. That's what I'm here to tell you today. You are more than your cancer, but your voice is stronger than you ever think it can be. Welcome.
Thank you, Representative Schofield. Let me tell you, that is a great way to kick this program off. As you can see, to all of our registrants and participants of this workshop, we're not just excited that you're here, but we're excited that we are going to make a difference. So please tell everybody you know that the first Saturday of every month for the next 4 months, we're going to be dealing with lung cancer. And I thank God for Representative Schofield bringing to bear that there are other cancers and other diseases that will affect the lungs. And we have a saying here, as you can see at the top of the screen, if you have lungs, you can get lung cancer. And so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you are empowered to do and to be all that you can. Live your best life. That's what we want you to do. Now I want to bring up and thank God for Nate Stevens. And Nate Stevens is one of our sponsors here, and I'll let him talk about it and welcome us to this program. Hey, Nate, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Pastor Eddie, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you clear.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name's Nate Stevens, and I'm the Senior Manager of Health Equity and Enterprise Advocacy at Amgen. Amgen is a global biotech company that is committed to unlocking the potential of the biology for patients in there who are suffering from serious illnesses by discovering, developing, manufacturing, and delivering innovative human therapeutics. Before joining Amgen, I practiced medicine clinically as a physician assistant for nearly 10 years, working with thousands of patients across a variety of subspecialties. I also worked for several years as a pulmonary fibrosis patient educator in the pharmaceutical industry before I came to Amgen. More importantly, though, as it relates to today's discussion, I come to you as a family member of someone who battled lung cancer. My mother passed away 4 years ago this week from lung cancer. And as a biracial family, I look back in frustration at how we were treated, even with the medical knowledge that I had. So I can certainly empathize with the barriers and challenges that patients and caregivers face throughout the care journey, and how important it is to have advocates in the community, as well as being an advocate for oneself. It's no secret that the Black community and other underserved populations have historically had worse outcomes and lower cancer screening and biomarker testing rates. Lung cancer education in general is also lower in communities of color. Through innovative medicines and technology, Amgen is working toward the goal of survivorship for anyone who faces cancer, lung cancer or any other type. But until we find a cure, medicine alone can't and shouldn't be our only focus. Increasing survivorship can be aided by doubling down and investing in capabilities we already have. This includes increasing lung cancer screening, biomarker testing, but also educating communities about lung cancer risks, even among non-smokers, and particularly the younger Black generations. We can achieve these by working with advocacy partners and policymakers to make these valuable tools easier to access. We must also work with the medical community, including individual physicians and health systems, to acknowledge and address the systemic racism and unconscious biases that have impacted communities of color for generations. At Amgen, we are committed to this work. While we continue to support the overall lung cancer community through our traditional advocacy outreach, we are specifically focusing our health equity efforts toward the Black lung cancer community in Georgia over the next 3 to 5 years. We will take a measured approach, identify what's working and what isn't, make adjustments, and scale and grow to take on other geographies across the country. We'll take an ecosystem approach, looking to take on projects across all aspects of the lung cancer care journey, including insurance, policy, health systems, and providers, as well as working to better support the patients and advocates on the ground. At Amgen, we understand we can't do this alone. This event and our broader partnership with the HEAL Collaborative and others will hopefully serve to empower those who have an intimate knowledge of these issues and the communities that they impact, and we can work together in service to the survivors and families. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Pastor Eddie. Thank you so much for hosting this event with your church, and thank you to the HEAL Collaborative for bringing us all together today.
Thanks again, Nate. And Amgen has been a strategic partner and continue to be invested in this process. And so we graciously say thank you to your firm and your company for what you have done and continue to do. Now we're going to get right into the meat of the matter. And so this has been a great time of welcoming and opening prayer, but now we want to get to the heart of it. We have a special guest, and his name is Chris Draft. He's a former NFL player who has a passion now for lung cancer and its related challenges and the love. And I got to tell you guys, if ever you heard Chris speak, it is a joy to hear someone that has a cause in their hearts. And Chris, thank you for coming on, my friend. And let me tell you, Chris is also an impactor right here at Impact Church in East Point, Georgia, the Tri-City area. And I am excited to introduce him and listen to some of the things that he has to say regarding this. Chris, I hope that you're going to be with us throughout the 16 weeks, but I know your schedule is pretty tight. So I welcome now Chris Draft.
Thank you, Pastor Eddie. So I am excited to be here with you guys via Zoom. I'm sorry for the lack of lighting. I'm a little bit dark right here because I'm streaming from Chicago. I'm up here at ASCO, the biggest cancer conference in the world. Nate Stevens, who you just heard from Amgen, is up here along with a whole bunch of other people that are fighting to make a difference. And so I have to start off and say, if you have lungs, you can get lung cancer. For a lot of you guys, you're probably saying, really? Because you never heard that. You never saw that. So I have to say it again. If you have lungs, you can get lung cancer. And that still might not sink in. So I have to get a little visual aid. And that is that my wife, Keisha, right here. My wife, Keisha, was diagnosed with lung cancer December 2010 and unfortunately passed in December of 2011. And so 37 years old, amazing shape, but no history of smoking, and was diagnosed with lung cancer. So that is why we're here. That's why it matters. But there are people that do have a smoking history. And I can tell you that one of my uncles passed away. It was a vet. Another uncle of mine that passed away. Lung cancer survivorship matters. If you guys get anything from me, hopefully I'm trying to get it through. That's why this matters. That's why you're here. And that's why I need you to invite your friends, because we still got 4 more workshops. This Breath of Life workshop, we need you guys. We need you to know the information so that you can share the information. So when it comes and it's in your home, that potentially you're able to find out earlier. And we know that if you find it out earlier, they talked about screening. Well, screening says stage 1, stage 2 is better than 3 and 4. That's how breast cancer has changed the game, by diagnosing it early. Yes, we would love to prevent it, We'd love to do that. That's why you see the smoking ads. That's why we need to see more in terms of radon. We need that, yes. But we got to recognize that people are going to get lung cancer, that we need survivorship. So prevention, early detection, treatment, research, and survivorship. You have some amazing experts going to talk to you guys about that. Survivorship is the goal. Believe that there is hope. They're going to talk to you about that hope. There are things that are changing. Again, I unfortunately know too well because my wife passed in 1 year. And then we have to celebrate those victories, right? Every time we change lives, we improve it. We improve it, we extend it. It is a good thing. So thank you. I know I'm just starting this thing off, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff that happens. So I want to say thank you to Heal Collaborative for standing up as a leader and making this happen. Thank you, Morehouse School of Medicine, of standing up and saying we need to be a part of this conversation. Thank you, Grady. We need you. You guys, I mean, you don't have shirts to say Grady babies for no reason. There's a whole bunch of Grady people in Atlanta. Amgen, thank you for your money and your support. You got to have it. We know we got to have it. And then Impact. Can I be biased? I have to be. Those are my people. I am biased because it's happening there, but more importantly, because they've always shared. And so Impact, it might be leading this, but this is about sharing with all the other churches and inspiring the other churches to be a part of it so those health ministries are better. And then thank you for all the experts and all the policymakers. Thank you for everybody that's on this call. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your buy-in, because that's what it takes. If we want to change the face of lung cancer, it needs a team. I'm Chris Draft. I played 12 years in the league, in the NFL. I know that it takes a team. So thank you all for being here. And let's make it happen.
Thank you, Chris. And I told you guys, this is going to be an exciting presentation for the next 16 weeks. You're going to see Chris talk more about the White Ribbon Project and the Chris Draft Family Foundation. Know that they're on the ground. They're boots on the ground. And thank you, Chris, for taking a few moments up there in Chicago to be with us. And I know that we're going to see you very soon. I look forward to seeing you at church, man. So I hope you can fly back home. There it is. There it is. A lung cancer awareness, the White Ribbon Project. And those of you that are on, know that we're going to have an opportunity for you to receive a white ribbon because of your fight and your journey, your cancer journey. That's what we call it, because it is not a death sentence if you are aware of the products and the resources that are out there. And Chris, thank you, man. You are doing it. You're boots on the ground, and I can't be more proud of you. I look forward to what you're going to bring to this.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, definitely let them know, all the survivors and all of you guys. Right. Ribbon is waiting for you. Just reach out to us and let us know.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Chris. Be safe up there, and God bless you and have grace on your travels. And now we're going to get right into the workshop, the panels. And so if you are excited as I am, get ready for some amazing speakers, some amazing panelists, some clinicians, some physicians that have been on the ground and fighting this. And they are a part of not only the African American community, but we are a part of the community at large. And we want to impact the Tri-City area. So if you have individuals that are in College Park, Hapeville, East Point, in Metro Atlanta, Impact Church, the Hill Collaborative, and Amgen and Grady Healthcare Systems, along with Morehouse School of Medicine, we are right here to give you the information, and we'd like to be a partner with you in your journey. Now, I turn this part of the program over to Michelle Bolden, a good friend of mine, the beautiful Michelle Bolden, and she is a powerhouse as it relates to caregiving, not just in the Atlanta area, but nationally. And I'll let her tell more about that. But this panel is an amazing panel. So thank you all for being with us. And here we go. Michelle, I turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Pastor Eddie Bridgman. What an exciting start we've had today. I am motivated to make a change, to listen and learn, and I'm sure our audiences as well. Again, my name is Michelle Bolden. I'm also an impactor, and I'm the founder of Call for Caring, which is a resource and advocacy organization for family caregivers. So I'm excited to be part of this, is to support those who are survivors of cancer who are going through the process, and those who support those with lung cancer as well. So we want to go ahead and get started. I am excited to moderate our first panel discussion entitled, "What is lung cancer? It is not all smoke." Our speakers for this panel are Dr. Eric Flanall and Dr. Lawrence Sanders. If you have questions for the panelists, please place them in the chat box, and we'll address as many questions as we can during the end of both presentations. If you have a specific presenter that you would like to have the question addressed, you can add that information as well. So without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Flanall.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for inviting me today. I want to start out by saying that lung cancer has really wreaked havoc in the African-American population throughout the years. And till recently, we really started to see what factors play a role in that, into the development of it, and some of the outcomes from it. So I have just a few slides I'd like to go through, just sort of discussing a few of these and how we approach countering some of these disparities in the initial diagnosis of lung cancer. Just as a background, I've been working in the Georgia Cancer Center of Excellence at Grady Hospital for about the past 20 years or so, and have had a lot of just experience seeing how it's impacted the community that's here where we live. And so we can go with the next slide. So when we talk about lung cancer disparities and the differences between different patient populations, we have to, and especially looking at the African-American population, we really have to look at it in two different ways. One is the health of our people, and some of the factors, the lifestyle changes, the factors, the dietary things that contribute, and then the health care, and that's the quality, the availability, the access to the health care that they receive. Because with health, that plays a role in terms of the biology and the development. And with the health care, that plays a role in the factors that determine early detection, and then availability and treatment, diagnosis and treatment. Next slide. So let's look at this health side of it and the environmental and biology components of it. Next slide. Okay. So things to keep in mind, and I really want this to kind of sink in. There's health and there's health care. And when I talk about this, and you'll hear about that, we really need to separate those from each other so that when we try to make a solution, we know what the problems are and how to approach them. But just to give some background and just some basic information, African Americans, they have the highest U.S. mortality, the death rate from lung cancer. This is despite having similar or even better smoking rates than with whites. They're less likely to meet the screening and eligibility criteria. They're diagnosed at later stages, and they have lower likelihood of receiving just the standard diagnostic staging and treatment options. And some of that comes from not having things available, or not knowing or having access. And the other part is not having awareness of what to ask for when you go speak with your physician, and what tests they should be doing, and having the knowledge and that background to demand that you're getting the right level of care that you deserve. Next slide. Okay, so in just the general breakup, and this is looking at African Americans. This is the latest data from 2019 for lung cancer, or cancers across the board. But if you look at the top level, that gives an estimation of the new cases that are expected each year of the different types of cancer. And with men, prostate was number one. Number two was lung, and for women, breast was number one, and number two was lung. And the difference was about 30% of the new cancers in each of them, breast and prostate, made up the differences, or made up the number one causes for each sex. But if you look at lung, it's significantly less, 14% versus 30 with men, and prostate versus lung, and breast versus lung, 32% versus 11%. But look at the lower level, and that's the estimated deaths. And you look that lung immediately jumps up to the top as the highest or the biggest cause of deaths in both populations. So this tells you that even though it's not the most prominent cancer in each of the sexes, it's the one that causes the most deaths. So there's this thing with also the susceptibility to having worse outcomes from the disease or not being able to receive proper treatment to achieve a cure. Next. Okay. So give you an idea about why, and you'll hear this over the next few weeks about smoking and how smoking impacts. And yes, you don't need to have had a smoking history to develop lung cancer. However, we do know that smoking is one of the biggest causes of lung cancer. So if there's more smoking rates, or smoking rates are higher, then that's going to increase your incidence of developing lung cancer. But look at the two comparisons here. So the one on the left-hand side is looking at the race, looking at the lung cancer incidence rates per race. And if you look at the incident rates, it's 74.7 per 100,000 people for African Americans, significantly higher than whites, which is 64, and the Native Americans, Alaskan Americans at 44. But now let's jump over and see, how does that relate to smoking, right? Because you would expect that if you smoke more, that you'd be a higher risk. But if you look at the rates there for African Americans, 25 for 25.5 and 18 for men, that it's almost equal to whites and significantly less than Native Americans, right? But then that doesn't translate well. There's something else factoring in. Yet, yes, smoking does contribute to lung cancer, but you would think that if everything was equal across the board between the races, that you would have equal number of whites incidence rates between whites and African Americans for lung cancer, and that you'd have a higher one for Native Americans. So there is something to the health, to the genetics, that plays a factor that makes African Americans a little bit higher risk for developing lung cancer with less or equal smoking histories as other groups. Next slide. Okay, so let's look a little bit at healthcare, and then I could spend, because I do this talk a lot, I could spend a long time on the other aspects of it, but I'd love to get into the discussion. So I'm going to move forward into the healthcare. Next one, next slide. Okay, so African Americans are less likely to meet eligibility criteria for screening than whites are. And so that comes from a couple of reasons. One is the big study, the National Lung Cancer Screening Trial, that came up with the criteria, or that we developed the criteria for screening. It only had about 4% of the patients in there were African Americans, but that's where the criteria came from. In the United States, especially the smoking population, the makeup of African Americans is about 14%. So you got to think that we're underrepresented in the study that established the criteria for screening. So the screening was built, maybe not intentionally, it's the lack of having studies, but not intentionally, but the screening was primarily built based on a population that was underrepresented. And when it came to putting that into clinical practice, we found that a lot of African Americans were being missed for the opportunity to have screening. Next slide. Okay, and we found this, we noticed this just seeing what comes through our hospital at Grady each year. We diagnose about 180 new lung cancers each year. And what I noticed a few years ago was that I was starting to see people that were 29, 30 with stage 4 lung cancer, and then very short tobacco use histories. And I said, this just doesn't make sense, especially when the screening criteria was, you don't even start screening till they're like 55. And I said, there has to be something more to this. So we actually took a look at our population, and we looked retrospectively. We took those patients that we knew that were diagnosed with lung cancer, 95% of them being African American. So that we knew they had lung cancer. And then we took the screening criteria and applied it and said, how many of them would have been even qualified for screening? And what we found is that about 11% were underneath the age for screening, and another 6% were above the age recommended for screening. So that tells us that 17% of our patient population, 17% of the African Americans who had lung cancer weren't even a candidate to have it caught early, right? So that tells you that there was a problem with the screening. The screening, one size screening, did not fit all populations. And then shortly after that, 2 other studies came out similar that showed that smoking tobacco use, the smoking criteria for screening was she needed to be less for African Americans, and it confirmed what we had found. And so recently there's been a change, and in the later meetings, we'll talk more about the screening criteria and how to go about doing it. But next slide. Okay. So African Americans are diagnosed at a later stage. Next slide. So when we talk about stage, we've kind of divided into 3 main criteria. One is the cancer when you're diagnosed, is it localized? Did we catch it early? Okay, and so that's the localized region. And then the second, is it regional? Is it still in the chest, but may have some lymph nodes involved? And then the distant stage or the late stages is when it's spread to other parts of the bodies. So if you look at each of the columns and the categories that we have there, whites are being in blue and blacks are in red. You'll see that at localized stage, African Americans are less likely to be diagnosed at a localized stage. Okay, a regional stage, still a little bit less, but almost equal. But when it comes to having late stage or very distant spread of disease, that they actually rise above. So this is telling us there's a problem with the diagnostic process of being able to catch it early, which may go back a little bit to the screening and maybe go back to even recognizing who's at risk for developing lung cancer. Next slide. Okay. And then the lower likelihood of receiving standard diagnostic, staging, and treatment options. Next slide. Okay. So we know, especially when it comes to getting into screening, getting in to see your doctor, that African Americans, especially African American men, have not been the best to be able to get into the doctor and get these things done. This is going to require a culture change. This is going to require us recognizing who should get out there and be recognized and get in. And then also the ability to get proper treatments for lung cancer. And this is a study that looked at the easiest stage to treat, which is stage 1. Stage 1 is the easiest stage to treat because if it's early stage, you go take it out and you cut it out and you're done with it. You've reached what's called a cure. And if you look across the board, white men, about 93% of those diagnosed with lung cancer got surgery. White women, 93%. Black women, 90%. Black men, 65% of those eligible with stage 1 cancer that could be cured didn't reach it and didn't get there. Next slide. Okay. But the problem with that, and the reason it's important that we focus in on that and get African American men especially in to get treatment when they find it available, is through this long study, and I won't go through all the details of it, but what they found, next slide, is that if you have similar treatment for the similar stage of disease, then the racial differences go away. And so if we look at the graph on the right side, we look at the survival over time and the probability of survival with whites and blacks, blue, whites, and red. You can see that there's a difference against all patients. But when they take those patients that had surgery, for the easiest one to track, stage 1, get to surgery. And all of those patients that had surgery, black and white, you can see that difference in survival almost mirrors each other. So the important thing is, if we can get equal treatment, quality treatment across the board, a lot of the survival disparities disappear. And I have a feeling we'll start to see this when we start moving into getting into biomarker testing and focused treatment. Next slide. Okay. So just keep in mind as we go through these talks and the points where we have to focus on, African Americans have the highest risk for disparate care for lung cancer. Screening criteria missed a large portion of smokers at risk for lung cancer. Structured treatment by targeting specific populations at risk and specific treatment options, biomarker testing for targeted therapy need to be advanced because we know that equal care will give us equal outcomes. Next slide. And our biggest target should be African American men. That's it. Next slide. That's the last slide.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flanell. It's such great information that you provided, especially I like to look at the numbers and kind of see where things are going. And that's just a reality check. You know, as the advocate for family caregivers, we always recommend self-care, right? So self-care can be getting your nails done, meditating, but it's also preventive care. Going to the doctor, getting that checkup, getting those preventive screenings. While it may miss some, it's catching a lot as well. So everything that we can do as part of self-care is very important, that we take care of ourselves as well. So thank you so much for that great information, Dr. Flanoff.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Dr. Sanders come aboard. And Dr. Sanders, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me. I don't have a camera this morning because of technical difficulties, but I actually want to pick up where Dr. Flanoff sort of framed it for us and talk about prevention. And I think you really just said something that's very important, the importance of early detection. And really, that's where I want to start with in talking about prevention. So what is prevention? Prevention is really the act of stopping something from happening. So you've got to take action to make prevention work. So let's start with early detection. What does it mean? If something is wrong and doesn't get better, or it's getting worse, go see your primary care physician. Go see your primary care physician before somebody needs to take you to the emergency room. And I'm going to put primary care to the side here because I want to come back and talk to it a little bit later. But let's turn to lung cancer. Let's start with what should we do, or what symptoms or what things should make us think that we need to take action or react to these symptoms. And the National Cancer Institute says that if you got a cough that doesn't go away, or if you're coughing up small amounts of blood, if you got shortness of breath, chest pain, hoarseness that doesn't go away, if you're losing weight and not intending to lose weight, your bones hurt, or you got a headache that doesn't go away, those are signs and symptoms that mean you need to go see your primary care physician. And working with a quality primary care physician should set in place a strategy to help you find the cause of those symptoms and get you to the right place for screening and treatment. I'm not going to talk a lot about the treatment and screening, but again, it gets us back to the importance of primary care. So now that's early detection. That's really reaction to the symptoms that may be associated with a disease or other problems. But let's talk about another type of prevention, and I'll call that primary prevention. And that means actually taking the action to stay healthy as a means to prevent disease. So let's talk about lung cancer. Lung cancer prevention requires action. We've heard about smoking. Clearly, it's not the only risk factor, the only cause, but if you smoke, you need to quit. And if you don't smoke, don't start. You need to avoid secondhand smoke. You need to avoid exposure to radiation. And I think the topic that comes into play here is radon exposure. Radon is a radioactive gas that comes from the breakdown of uranium in the rock and soil. And the EPA recommends that everybody gets their home tested. It's not too expensive. Your county or state radon office can help you find a qualified and reliable firm or individual to test your home. In addition to that, you need to avoid exposures to lung carcinogens or toxins that are associated with cancer. The one that we know most about is a chemical called asbestos, but there are other heavy metals. Air pollution. People who live close to multi-lane highways, who live near the freeways, are at risk because of exposure to particles. And that puts you at further risk. Now, the next two things are not correlated with lung cancer, but when you find these two things present, the risk or incidence of lung cancer goes down. And that is a diet with fruits and vegetables. That shows a negative correlation with lung cancer. A diet with at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, and physical activity, exercise. These last two things really point to getting healthy and trying to take actions to stay healthy. So what is health? The World Health Organization puts a definition out there that it's a complete state of physical, mental, social, and some of us add spiritual well-being, and not just the absence of disease. And I think that's important. And when you take a step back and you think about health equity, that's really all of us working together to assure that everybody has an opportunity to achieve a healthy life using that definition. So let's talk about prevention and the acts you need to take to really achieve both all of those physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Let's talk about it from the individual level. What do we as individuals need to do? And the best way I know how to describe that comes from Dr. David Satcher, who was the Surgeon General during the Clinton administration, and he left us a prescription for health. And it really starts like this. If you smoke cigarettes, quit. If you don't smoke, don't start. Avoid toxins, addictive drugs. If you drink alcohol, use alcohol wisely and avoid abuse. Aim for responsible sexual behavior. Engage in moderate physical activity 5 days a week, at least 30 minutes. Eat at least 5 servings of fruit and vegetables every day. The more color on your plate, the better. Engage in activities to release stress and get adequate sleep every night. You know, earlier I put that primary care piece on hold, but I want to bring it back because I think primary care takes us to the next level of prevention. And that is, and it takes beyond. If something is wrong and you try to go to your primary care doctor and there's no primary care doctor either accessible or affordable, you can't see the primary care. And no individual can build a primary care clinic. That requires our collective work and the support from our elected officials to assure that affordable, high quality care is available to everybody. And that's why we need to work together to expand Medicaid in Georgia. Access to healthcare is really part of what we call the social determinants of health. And those are the conditions where people are born, grow, work, live, age, and there are many factors outside of healthcare: safe neighborhoods for everybody, affordable housing, access to food and clean water, solid opportunities for education, access to equitable incomes and the same pay for the same work, access to health services. Primary care is an important part of that, and having strong social networks. That's really what good health is about. It is the actions that we take as individuals and the actions that we must take at society level to make sure that resources are distributed equitably and that there's a fair distribution of the disadvantages, that not all the dumps or waste facilities are put in African American neighborhoods. So we have to work together to do that. And it's really about the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, which is really health. And it's a fundamental right. And I'll stop there, see if there are any questions, and then we can go from there.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. Right now, I'm not seeing any questions. I think there was a question regarding the impact of external factors, but you addressed that, talking about those things that impact lung cancer, not only chemicals, et cetera, but also just our living conditions in general as well, and our mental, physical, and spiritual health. So
Yes.
it looks like that question was addressed. So I don't see any more questions right now. What a great way to start this discussion. Is such impactful information. I hope people were taking notes because you've received a roadmap in order to change things now for what you do today, right? Regarding where the numbers are, the screening, what you can do every day, the simple things in order to prevent and also just to stay healthy altogether. And so if you don't remember anything else, remember to get your checks, your preventive care, your wellness checks. Just do the basic things that we know. Drink water, fruits and vegetables. All those things are very important. So thank you again to our panelists, Dr. Flanall and Dr. Sanders. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Barn, who's going to lead our next discussion.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
All right.
Hi.
Turning it over to you.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Sydney Barnett. I am an internal medicine specialist. I was actually also diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer while I was in my residency program. And thankfully, they did biomarker testing, so I was able to start targeted therapy and be able to complete residency. And now I work with oncology patients, going through the various gammas of diagnosis, treatments, and liaisoning with the oncologist while they're hospitalized at my facility. Now, I'm going to be leading this panel on prevention, risk reduction, and wellness. And I have two people to introduce. I have Summer Frost. She is a senior educator at Georgia Department of Public Health. And Derek Kupo, who is a radon educator at University of Georgia, College of Public Health. Welcome, guys. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I am good. I am good. So, most people know that, they've been told their whole life, oh, to prevent lung cancer, all you have to do is stop smoking. However, radon is not spoken as much. So Derek, we've already heard Dr. Sanders mention radon. Is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about radon? And how is the general population exposed to it?
Yeah, so radon is actually the second leading cause of lung cancer behind smoking. And radon exposure combined with a history of smoking is actually very dangerous in itself. And radon is also the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. So it's a lot of reasons to test your home. Radon itself comes from the breakdown of uranium, which occurs naturally in a lot of rocks and rocky soils. Specifically in Georgia, we're talking about granite rock. If you guys have all seen Stone Mountain, I assume, that sticks up above the ground where Stone Mountain is, but that rock extends below the whole north half of Georgia. So we all have a source for radon there in the ground. And as it is emitted from the rock, it travels up through the soil. And if it ends up coming up under a home, that's when it can concentrate into dangerous levels. Unfortunately, radon is odorless and colorless and tasteless. And generally, there are no short-term health effects. So you won't necessarily feel bad from breathing it. However, after many years of exposure, it can lead to an increased risk of lung cancer. Fortunately, testing for radon is relatively inexpensive, and if it's found, you can always fix the issue of radon in the home. Anyone who is attending this should be able to get a free radon test kit from us, and I really encourage you guys to take advantage of this opportunity. These test kits are normally $10 to $15, but you should be getting a link in the chat soon for you to click and fill out, and I'll mail you guys a test kit. So yeah, we can kind of go over how to use those kits in a few minutes here.
Okay. All right. So, Somo, when you educate your patients on tobacco and cancer, like what are the key points that you tell them?
So I really try to stress tobacco cessation, working with their healthcare providers to help them quit smoking, using all of the resources available to them. Georgia has the Georgia Tobacco Quit Line, which offers patients free 24-hour counseling, offers them free nicotine replacement therapy, so patches and gum to help them quit, and then other classes and things like that. I also stress the importance of making sure you're not exposing other people to secondhand smoke. Atlanta recently passed the smoke-free ordinance, which is really great for a lot of restaurant workers and musicians and patrons, like people who go to restaurants in Atlanta. But technology has made it so that secondhand smoke is really tolerable. It's socially acceptable, and a lot of people are being exposed to it. And it does cause lung cancer. So just making sure people are aware of their risks, even if they aren't a smoker, so that they can protect themselves, protect their children, and try to request that people don't smoke around them. And also work exposure. So if you have certain jobs, like if you're a construction worker, or if you work with a lot of pesticides, a lot of chemicals, making sure you're wearing your OSHA masks, like you're not increasing your risks by exposing yourself to other harmful chemicals.
Okay, that sounds very comprehensive. So, what do you guys think are the barriers to, tobacco treatment, radon mitigation, and improving the environment from an occupational and residential exposures?
I'll go first really quick here. With radon, I think the biggest barrier testing is pretty inexpensive and easy. The first barrier is just knowledge to know that you need to test for it. We recommend testing every 2 years to make sure your radon levels are low and safe. And the second barrier is the cost of mitigation. We don't have any laws on radon in Georgia right now. So it's something that generally a homeowner or a landlord would have to pay for. And the average cost to fix a home with radon is about $1,200. So it's a significant home expense. So that is one barrier. But it's really important to be testing to know, because in the grand scheme, that cost is generally much lower than the cost of treatments for lung cancer, which is a pretty devastating illness. So those are the biggest barriers we face, and our goal with our program is to at least be on the education front, to give you guys all the resources you need to do the test properly and to find a qualified contractor to fix the issue if you do run into having radon in the home.
Summer?
I think maybe, yeah, because in my mind I was like, oh, that's hard. It would probably have to be just in general, the tobacco industry. I mean, it's very profitable, and they have like a lot of great marketing techniques. They make things catchy, they make them vibrant, they make them smell like plug-ins so that you're not disturbed by the smell and you don't ask people to stop smoking around you. So there are a lot of barriers. I think at the end of the day, I really just try to focus on the fact that the community wants to be healthy and that like people want to improve their health outcomes and either like, improve it for those to come or improve it for themselves. And so just focusing on that and making sure that we're supporting everybody who wants to try. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, one of the things, we've been seeing in the news recently is like, oh, if you want to quit smoking, why not try vaping? What do you think about that?
I'm not a fan of the approach. A lot of times one, it's not really an approved method to quit. A lot of times it leads to an issue of dual use, which means people end up smoking and they end up using the vape, which increases their exposure to nicotine and all of the harmful chemicals that are in the vape. And so I'm just not a fan of that particular method. For those who are actually able to completely switch over, it then becomes an issue of quantity. If you go through, 5 refills of a vape pen in a week, that's no better than your cigarette a pack a day. So like it has its pros and cons. And like I said, it also makes secondhand smoke exposure a lot more acceptable. People are more likely to vape around their kids or think it's safe. And so that concerns me a lot. Yeah, I just think in general, like not putting foreign substances in our lungs is the best way to, prevent that damage that leads to lung cancer. And I don't feel like there have been enough studies on like long-term studies on vaping that can say for sure, like, oh, this is definitely better. So yeah.
So what are, I guess, the approved ways of, helping to quit smoking then?
So right now, at least in the States, the American Lung Association has a program called Freedom from Smoking. And there are different versions of it, like the Georgia Tobacco Quit Line uses a similar counseling program. So usually working either with your physician or like a county health department representative to use a scientifically proven method to help you stop smoking. That also includes nicotine replacement therapy. There are other prescriptions. You have to work with a doctor to get most of those because, like, for instance, some of them are antidepressants, some of them counteract with other medications. So you sort of need a full healthcare team to help you explore those options safely.
Now, Derek, this is just, I guess, a question just came to my mind. I find that, in my support group, there are a lot of us who are, young. I was diagnosed at 33. And a lot of us are very active. We do a lot of running. Do we think that, maybe it's more environmental that, I guess now thinking about the whole radon exposure, being outdoors a lot more, running, do you think that that could probably have been a link that could have been missed?
Yeah, it's really hard with radon exposure. It's really unique to indoor air. So the reason it's become an issue indoors is because our homes and our buildings are so well insulated that they unintentionally trap the radon gas inside. So often, the more time we're spending outside, the less time we're exposed to radon. However, unfortunately, as we know, a lot of us spend just a huge amount of time inside just because that's the way people live now. And so our risk becomes a little higher when we're spending that much time indoors.
Okay, so basically stay outdoors a little bit more, maybe decrease the risk of radon exposure.
Right, right. Or just get your home tested and then you'll know that your home is a safe place to be.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, anything else that you guys would like to add to the folks, just in terms of, helping to prevent, reduce risk and just overall wellness when it comes to decreasing the risk of lung cancer?
Yeah, so we offer tons of ways to support like healthy environments for workplaces, etc. So if you're ever interested in that support, feel free to reach out to Fulton County Board of Health or Georgia State Department. We offer like wonderful resources to either help people quit smoking or pick up other healthy activities if you want to get outside more, all of that great stuff, or eat healthy, just to help reduce all of your risks overall. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just going to encourage everyone one more time to click the link in your chat to get your free radon test kit. This is a unique opportunity. They are normally paid, and we can all really take one more step to improving our health by doing that test. So please take advantage of it.
Okay, well, thank you, Summer. Thank you, Derek, for being here, for helping educate me and the audience on the number 1 and 2 risk factors for lung cancer. So now I am going to be just handing it over to Jamie Bowles. She is WJPMS Media Powerhouse.
All right. Am I in? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. So welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here today. I'm really, really grateful that HEAL Collaborative, Amgen, and Morehouse and Grady have all teamed up to bring you guys this conversation. And I'm really excited to moderate the next part of our talk here, which is the patient and caregiver panel. I myself was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in December of 2018. L positive. I got a biomarker testing done, which is great. I was really excited about that. And they actually found a genetic mutation, which means I'm now on targeted chemotherapy rather than radiation and regular chemo. And my journey has been, unique in my own, and it's had its ups and its downs, but I'm just grateful for, all the science and research that goes into creating the medicines that keep folks like me alive and well so that I can continue running WJMS Media and doing all the things that we do. But I'm really excited to introduce the ladies with me today. And again, I wish I could be in person at Impact Church, but I am really grateful that we're still doing this virtually, and shout out to them for hosting this conversation. But today, my partners on this conversation are going to be Natalie Brown and Veronica Conway, who are both wonderful, wonderful people. I'm really excited to talk to them today and kind of just get their, journeys themselves. So Natalie, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience and kind of talk a little bit about your diagnosis and your journey, and then we'll turn it over to Veronica to do the same.
Awesome. Well, I want to make sure that you can hear me first.
Absolutely.
Yay, having a lot of difficulties this morning. Thank you so much, Jamie, for the introduction. Thank you so much for everyone for inviting me to the panel. I really appreciate it. As Jamie stated, my name is Natalie Brown, and I am a stage 4 lung cancer patient, advocate, and warrior. I was diagnosed in July of 2020 at the height of the pandemic. Things were very crazy. Then I am currently doing very well, in my opinion. I am stable right now. Unfortunately, I did not have a mutation like Jamie does. So right now, I'm on chemotherapy and immunotherapy. That is once every 3 weeks. And just to give you a brief overview of my journey, a lot of people in the medical field wasn't really sure of how I got my condition. We still don't know. They also weren't sure what I had. I was told that I possibly had malaria or some type of rare infection, especially for my age, because they had never seen this before. I was told that I was having, if I'm pronouncing this right, bronchospasms, allergies, asthma. And then I was even told at one point it's not cancer. And then it turned right back around, and then it actually is cancer. Another thing that happened to me during this crazy journey is my lungs collapsed as a result of a biopsy that I had. So that was no fun at all. But during this whole journey, I'm learning a lot about myself, a lot about lung cancer, a lot about advocacy. I am involved with the White Ribbon Project, going around trying to give out ribbons. As a matter of fact, Chris Draft and I, who spoke earlier, we're actually partnering with Piedmont to give out white ribbons on Monday to a few survivors at Piedmont Hospital. So that's it pretty much for right now.
That's amazing. Veronica, do you want to join and give your story as well?
Yeah, Natalie, that is amazing. Good for you. And so my name is Veronica Conway. And first, let me just say that my voice may go in and out because I was cheering kind of hard last weekend at a baseball tournament. So, but I think it should last for a little while. So I'm sorry. Excuse me.
All good.
Said that it didn't work. I am currently living in Birmingham, Alabama. I am from Louisiana originally. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in 2008. And at that time, she was still sort of moving around doing stuff. She didn't have any symptoms. She wasn't coughing. She was doing everything. As a matter of fact, I had just moved into a new house, and she and my dad came and helped me move in and did a whole bunch of stuff. And that was like June or July of 2008. In September, she was working in the yard, and all of a sudden she started to feel this pain in her neck. And it was on both sides. Had it been one side, she was thinking, oh, maybe I'd pulled the weeds too hard or did something that was, strenuous. But she realized at that point that, okay, if it's on both sides, something's not good. And she taught biology. So she was sort of somewhat aware, of her body and sort of what was going on with it. And so she went to the doctor, and sure enough, she called me before they went to tell me what was going on. Now, I didn't know what to expect, so I'm just waiting. I'm at work waiting to hear back from them. And sure enough, when they got the results back, they did the biopsy and found out that it was stage 4. It had gone into her lymph nodes. It was in her liver, I think, and her back, I believe, her bones in the back. So at that point, you're not sure what to do. So I'm 5 hours away, and so for me, I didn't know what being a caregiver meant at that point, right? I'm working full time. I'm an only child. I'm going back and forth. I'm traveling, and I'm thinking, okay, so how is this supposed to work? None of us knew. I mean, this was 2008. And at that point, you really didn't have a lot of conversations about lung cancer. No one talked about it because of the stigma. People were really sort of ashamed for whatever reason to talk about lung cancer. They didn't share it with anyone. They didn't talk about their stories. And so, which right now, I think that's the biggest difference from 2008 to now, that people are truly sharing their stories. I think that's the biggest takeaway right now. But back then, I was driving back and forth every weekend from Birmingham to North Louisiana, 10 hours round trip, and then still going to work. And at that point, I said, okay, something's got to give, because my mind was in Louisiana, and I just started a new job. And with a new job, you're supposed to be focused and on it, and you're trying to prove yourself. And I said, okay, something's going to either stop, or I'm going to stop, or pass out, or fall out, or, I'm going to drive off the road, driving back and forth. So I finally said, you know what? And I was okay with it. I hadn't told my mom and dad yet that I was going to do this, but I said, I am actually going to resign and temporarily move home to Louisiana. And I did not hesitate. I wasn't afraid, because that's when I knew that it was something I should have done. And I did that. And so for 9 months, I was with my mom and my dad and hanging out and doing stuff with them. And it was a great experience. But watching my mom go through some of these things made me realize that there are a lot of things that are lacking in healthcare in general, specifically with lung cancer as it relates to minorities. So we didn't have a lot of resources. You know, I did a lot of the Googling and all of that, but you didn't have a lot of people talking about it. There weren't a lot of groups. So for me, I took it upon myself to stay up late at night, researching. I didn't tell my mom because, again, she was going to worry about stuff. My dad was going to worry. So I sort of took it upon myself to do this. I don't recommend it to the other caregivers. I say share your journey with other people. But of course, hindsight is 2020. But yeah, so right now I am working in healthcare because after everything I went through, I knew that I could not go back to working in college athletics, which is what I used to do. So at 43, I made a major career change. And so anybody listening, if you're thinking about it, it's okay to make a change. Do that jump. It's okay. I was being led by faith. So here I am, and I'm glad to be a part of this.
Absolutely. So, ladies, I want to talk a little bit about support because, bless you, Veronica, you touched a little bit about support and resources just a moment ago. I know from my own journey, it wasn't that I was ashamed or embarrassed or anything like that. I just, I'm a public figure, but I'm also private about the stuff that goes on in my life. And so for a little while I first got my diagnosis, I wasn't really talking about it. And I remember getting very angry at my mother because she kept telling my family members, and I'm like, stop telling people I have cancer. And she's like, they need to know. And I'm like, no, they don't, And so it was one of those things where I was sort of living two different lives. And I know that there was a point where, I was having an interview with somebody and she didn't know me from anybody else, in the world. And she was talking about people with platforms and how they don't use them to talk about things that are important. And it was at that point that I realized that I needed to reach out and talk and become that platform. And I started to look for support. And one of the places that I found, like Natalie said, I'm affiliated with a lot of organizations now at this point. But one of the organizations that I found, it really opened up my eyes to, the ways that we can support each other and become resources for each other. And so I wanted to kind of ask you ladies, especially you, Veronica, and, Natalie, you and I kind of walk in the same circles. So we've got our chats and things like that. But I'm interested to know what kind of resources you guys have found that have been sort of best practices for, whether it's caregiving or whether it's for us ourselves on our journey.
So I guess I'll try to address that. So again, when this started with my mom, Twitter was kind of a new thing and we didn't know what that was about. There wasn't much on Facebook. There were, I guess, groups that were out there, but I didn't know the questions to ask. So when I joined Twitter, I found a friend who had also, and I call her a friend because she's a friend now, her mom had been diagnosed with lung cancer. And so we were both out there at the same time, just trying to read up on stuff and following all these oncologists. And we created a community. And so everybody started following each other and it became sort of our safe space, if that makes any sense. Even though it was public and it was on Twitter, we were able to communicate. And then with Twitter, or with any social media, people start seeing the conversations and they join in. And then you find out that there's so many people around that are going through the same thing. So we ended up sort of creating a group. We sort of created the hashtag, and I don't want to say sort of, but hashtag LCSM is lung cancer social media. And so there were 5 of us as founders and sort of, went back and forth and started creating these Twitter chats. And we realized that people were like hungry for information. Then we created a website and then we started reaching out to doctors and asking them to join us. And for us, it was comforting to know that there were more people out there looking for information. And so we took it upon ourselves, the group that started, to start spreading that information, reaching out to groups saying, hey, can you come onto this tweet chat because we've got questions. And that's how I learned. I basically learned from other people. In person, we didn't have a lot of support. All of my friends were like outside virtual. Nobody was in Birmingham. So just recently I've interacted with some people locally. But I would say that if you're not into social media, there are always people who are looking for volunteers in, excuse me, I'm sorry, who are looking for volunteers in cancer centers. That's kind of how I got my support. I volunteered at a cancer center, and that helped me quite a bit. After my mom passed away, there were people I could talk to about it, and that helped me sort of get through the not knowing what was going to happen next. So I think for me, it was more about social media. Some people like Facebook, some people like Twitter. There's always websites where you can communicate via email. I would just say, though, don't be afraid to ask for help and ask questions. And even when you are at doctor's appointments with your family members, ask doctors if they know people, if they know someone else with the same thing that your loved one has. That way you can sort of get connected and not feel so alone.
Absolutely. Natalie, what about you?
Pretty much the same thing. I say social media has helped me out a lot. I have met, and I'm sorry, I'm talking fast. I know we're running low on time, but excuse me. I know I've met a lot of people on social media that have helped me, just people. And that's not even how I got connected to Chris Draft. That's how I met other people. So I would say, like Veronica said, that social media is like the number one thing if you want to reach out for information for people or different types of support.
Absolutely. And so we only have about 2 minutes left. And so I got one last question for you ladies before I turn it over to our next segment. I know that, earlier on, Veronica, you mentioned there are some things that are lacking in terms of resources for, minority lung cancer patients. I want to see if there are anything you can specifically talk to or speak to in terms of resources that are sorely needed in the Black community for folks that are newly diagnosed or, dealing with a lung cancer diagnosis. Anything you can think of?
Well, the one thing I think that we missed out on, my mom and I missed out on, was being a part of clinical trials. So I think that there needs to be more information shared with patients, not so much as they're being diagnosed, but at least as they start talking about options, that clinical trials are options. And I think that's what's missing. My mom was in a small town. And so, you don't really have a lot of places in small towns that talk about clinical trials or offer clinical trials. And so I think, and a lot of people can't get to Houston or Dallas or, St. Louis. And so I think if there was anything that I would change, it would be to have an opportunity to talk about other options with the clinical trials and traveling. That's always been a barrier. A lot of people can't even get to appointments, which is why I really got involved in advocacy, because I saw how this was hurting people. So I would say definitely reach out to your doctors and find out more about clinical trials.
Absolutely. Natalie, what about you?
I would say just education in general as it pertains to lung cancer, because a lot of people don't know that, all you need is lungs to have lung cancer. The stigma behind it is the smoking piece of it. So I would just say different types of education in general, whether it's going to a church and get information from a workshop, something in the local community. I mean, just however we can get the information out about lung cancer would just help in general.
Absolutely. And so I think on my end, just to answer the question as well, one of the things that I think was sorely missing was representation in general. And so I try to have conversations with ladies that look like ourselves and men as well. Wow. But just having conversations with other Black women, cancer survivors. I have yet to meet a Black man cancer survivor. So if you know anybody, please point him in my direction, because I literally don't know any Black men who have lung cancer. It's really weird to say that. But I like to have conversations and do roundtable discussions and really just, put our stories out there as much as possible so people understand that there are, folks like you who have this, and you don't have to go through this alone. You don't have to suffer if you're in a small town because you're by yourself. And so WJMS Media tries to do things like that. But before we turn it over to the next panel, Nat, I believe you have an event coming up with the HEAL Collaborative as part of it. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it, mention it, and get some more buzz about it. So why don't you share that event with us?
Yes, thanks, Jamie. Super excited about the event. Hill is a sponsor for this, and thank you so much for coming up with this. But please come out and join us in the park on June the 25th at Barrett Park in College Park, Georgia. This is going to be geared towards cancer awareness and fitness. Working out is extremely important to me, and I hope it's extremely important to you. So please come out, not just lung cancer survivors, but breast cancer, any other type of cancers that you have, or if you want to just come out and be fit and help us to bring advocacy to cancer just in general, come out. And I think I can put the link in the chat so that everyone can register if you can, but come join us. It'll be lots of fun. We have a special guest trainer who's going to be there as well.
Ooh, I want to drive over from Birmingham.
Right? I'm like, how far away is College Park from Savannah? Let me see. I'll put that in my GPS real quick. But ladies, I want to thank you for sharing your stories and your wisdom with us today. We're going to move it over to the next section, which is going to be hosted by Kathy Levy. And she is going to be talking a little bit about patient advocacy organizations. So thank you again for your time. And thanks for the Hill Collaborative, Impact Church, Morehouse, Amgen, and Grady for having us today and allowing, Natalie, Veronica, and myself to be a part of this conversation. Hello. Good morning, Kathy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So my name is Kathy Levy. Good afternoon to everyone. So I am from the GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer. And today I was speaking to you what GoTo Foundation has to offer. So back in just a little bit of history about GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer. It was patient-founded support and advocacy for people living with or at risk for lung cancer. So back in 1979, Mort Weinberg formed an organization called the Alliance of Lung Cancer Advocacy and Support, which was later called ALCASE. And in 1999, Sheila Ross changed that name from ALCASE to Lung Cancer Alliance. And in 2004, relocated the office to Washington, D.C. with a policy focus. In 2006, Bonnie Adario Lung Cancer Foundation was formed. And in 2019, Lung Cancer Alliance and the Bonnie Adario Foundation came to form the GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer. So we are definitely on a mission to achieve health equity and transform survivorship. So we are a national nonprofit organization, and GoTo Foundation for Lung Cancer is definitely into diversity, equity, and inclusion principles. And that's what fuel our work actually to save and extend and improve the lives of all of those vulnerable and at risk and diagnosed with lung cancer. So our vision is to double the survival rate of those at risk for lung cancer from 20 to 40% by 2025. And we are definitely saving lives through our dissemination of knowledge and networking, through the Centers of Excellence Summit, which is coming up in October, and through the 1st of November, which will be in Nashville, Tennessee. And we have a total of 850 Centers of Excellence and 50 Continuum Care. Basically, they're there to follow the guidelines and to get more information out to the screening centers about the guidelines of screening and the care after diagnosis. So could you go back to the previous slide, please? Advocacy and on the Hill. Okay, so each year we have an Advocacy Voices Summit, and we just want to tell Congress how that it's personal. So we have people that have been patients that are diagnosed, survivors, and caregivers to go to the Hill and to make sure that our voices are heard, and also to ask for additional funding for lung cancer screening. Next slide, please. On this particular slide, due to time constraints, I will not go into details of each service that we offer, but the slides I'm sure will be available to you if you need those at a later date. So the patient education publications are as follows. They are easy to order. You can go to gotofoundation.org/materials, or you can ask questions. Previous slide, please. Okay. Questions just by sending us a simple email at materials@gotofoundation.org. Next slide. We have our lung cancer living room and patient education video library, and you can go there at any time to see previous and to hear previous educational videos about lung cancer screening and what's new out there in the world. Next slide. Our helpline. The number is on the screen, 1-800-298-2436, or you can email us at support@gotofoundation.org, and you can submit questions to our website at gotofoundation.org. Next slide. We have a phone buddy system. It's a peer-to-peer support group for people with lung cancer, and our volunteers are qualified to lend support. Next slide. We have our lung cancer support group network, and we provide free technical assistance, training, and tools to establish and sustain lung cancer. And if you're interested in starting a support group in your area, we have a guidebook that you can follow by, and you can get that information off of our website. We have the Lung Match program. It's 3 services provided in Lung Match, and it's treatment and trial navigation, clinical trial matching, and molecular testing services. Also on the Lung Match, we have a live helpline, or you can email or online request form, and it's a personalized navigation lung match program. Next slide. We also have 2,100 members in our lung cancer registry. We encourage every patient and caregiver to join the registry, and it's a free sign up. Small cell lung cancer initiative. The small cell lung cancer initiative is the less common type of lung cancer, and is found in approximately 13% of all lung cancer patients. And all of the information that we've just talked about, if you would go to our website, and the bulletin is called Connecting the Community. So all of the information that I have just gone over is available to it's called Connecting the Community. Everything that we've talked about is on this one sheet, and you are welcome to order that. All of our materials are free, no charge. If you would like to go to the website, gotofoundation.org/materials to order the free publications. Thank you, and we appreciate the invite and for you having us again. Thanks.
Wow. This has been an amazing first kickoff and great information that has been delivered to you, all of our registrants and participants and our panelists. I want to say personally, thank you for participating. Without you, we could not do this work. This is what we do and why we do. We want to make sure that information gets to our community. Thank you so much, Kathy, for you and the Go-To Foundation for Lung Cancer. I know that individuals are being blessed by that. Now, Saints, I want you to know that we have a post workshop survey. Please go on and fill that out, because that will put you in or make you eligible for a lot of the giveaways that we're going to be doing throughout this workshop series over the next 16 weeks or 4 months, every first Saturday in the month. And our next one is going to be on July the 2nd. And we're going to give away some things on July 2nd. That's the 4th of July weekend. So you and your family members, your loved ones, especially those that might be susceptible to lung cancer and its related illnesses, you are welcome to just take an hour and a half out of your weekend or your Saturday morning, come on and be a part of this so that we can continue to make an impact in our communities. I know that we have all been blessed by this information. I'm trying to get my little notepad here back on screen. I know that we've all been blessed by this information, and we're going to continue to be blessed because you are the feet, the hands, the mouths, and we overcome our enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. You have a testimony, and it may seem small to others, but there are people out there that you can make an impact in their lives. And I want to give you that space. We want to give you that space. Coming up, we're going to have a virtual / live workshop in our August and September events. We're going to make sure that you get the information and you can pass it on to your loved ones. Make sure you register. If you didn't pre-register, you see some of the information on the screen. If you would like more information, as all of the speakers have said, all the presenters have said, please email us back at breathoflife@impactdcd.org, or you can go onto the Heal Collaborative website and get this information. This is the information we want to spread throughout our communities and bring it into what we believe is a pandemic. This is not COVID-19. This is not the economic or social pandemics that we've been addressing over the last 3.5 years, but this is a pandemic that has been affecting our community for a very long time, and we want to make sure we put an end to it. Thank you so much for joining us, and until we see you again, may the Lord God bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord God be with you and bring you peace in every way. This is our prayer. Have an amazing rest of your weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on July 2nd for our next event. God bless and goodbye.